Previously on the Constitutional Record, over the past 9 days, we've walked through the record. In Episode 1, Jack Smith testified under oath that his team had, quote, proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump had committed crimes. He called Trump, quote, the most culpable and most responsible person, unquote, for January 6th. His case was built on Republican witnesses. In Episode 2, we examined the impeachment vote. 57 senators, a majority, voted to convict. 7 Republicans. But 67 votes were required. Mitch McConnell voted to acquit, then said there was, quote, no question, none, unquote, that Trump was, quote, practically and morally responsible, unquote. In Episode 3, the Supreme Court created presidential immunity from constitutional silence. Justice Sotomayor dissented, quote, with fear for our democracy, unquote, warning, quote, the president is now a king above the law, unquote. In Episode 4, approximately 1,500 January 6th defendants were pardoned, including people convicted of seditious conspiracy, conspiring to overthrow the government, pardoned by the man who sent them to the Capitol. Today, where are we now? And what comes next? Welcome back to Ethos Track. I'm Sarah. This is Episode 5 of the Constitutional Record, the series finale, The Accountability Void. We've documented the evidence. We've documented the constitutional mechanisms that failed. Now we have to look at what's happening to the institutions themselves. And then, because analysis paralysis is the enemy of democracy, we're going to talk about what you can actually do about it. Jack Smith's warning. In September 2025, during his House Judiciary Committee testimony, Jack Smith was asked about the future of the Justice Department under the Trump administration. His answer was direct, quote, since leaving the special counsel's office and returning to private life, I have watched as the president has engaged in an unprecedented campaign to dismantle much of the career law enforcement infrastructure at the DOJ and the FBI. Many experienced public servants, including numerous agents who worked on our investigation, have been fired, unquote. Let's be specific about what's been dismantled. The Public Integrity Section. The Public Integrity Section of the Justice Department is, or was, the unit responsible for prosecuting public corruption. Jack Smith ran this unit from 2010 to 2015. During his tenure, he brought cases against corrupt officials from both parties. This is the unit that investigates politicians who abuse their power. In early 2025, the Trump administration gutted it. Career prosecutors, people who spent decades building expertise in corruption cases, were reassigned, pushed out, or fired. The institutional knowledge of how to build public corruption cases? Scattered. The unit that would investigate whether officials are abusing their power? Hollowed out. Who benefits when the corruption investigators are gone? The FBI purge. It's not just the DOJ. The FBI has been systematically purged. Agents who worked on January 6th cases reassigned or terminated. Agents who worked on the classified documents investigation reassigned or terminated. Senior leadership with decades of counterterrorism or counterintelligence experience forced out. The pattern is clear. Anyone who investigated Trump or his allies has been targeted. This isn't about reforming institutions. This is about removing the people who know how to hold power accountable. The suppressed report. Jack Smith's final report on the election interference case was completed before he left office. Volume 1, covering the January 6th investigation, was released to Congress and eventually made public. Volume 2, covering information and analysis that Smith determined should be preserved for the historical record, remains sealed. Judge Aileen Cannon, who Trump appointed and who dismissed the classified documents case, issued an order preventing the release of Volume 2. Jack Smith testified that he has not even been permitted to review his own report since leaving office. Quote, "I've actually not been able to read Volume 2 because of Judge Cannon's order, because it was sealed. I haven't looked at it since I left office," unquote. The prosecutor cannot read his own report. The public cannot read it. It's sealed. What's in Volume 2 that required suppression? We don't know. And under current circumstances, we may never know. The accountability void. Let's map what we've documented across this series. The evidence. Jack Smith testified to proof beyond a reasonable doubt. His case was built on Republican witnesses. Trump was, quote, "the most culpable," unquote, person. The impeachment mechanism. A majority of senators voted to convict. It wasn't enough. The 2/3 threshold protected Trump. The criminal justice system. The Supreme Court created immunity doctrine from nothing, blocking prosecution for, quote, "official acts," unquote. The consequences. Those convicted were pardoned by the man who benefited from their crimes. The institutions. The units that investigate corruption have been gutted. The report has been suppressed. This is the accountability void. Every mechanism designed to hold a president accountable has either failed or been dismantled. Not one, all of them. What this means for 2026? 2026 is a midterm election year. The entire House of Representatives is up for election. 1/3 of the Senate is up for election. These are people who voted on impeachment, confirmed or rejected judicial nominees, conduct oversight of the executive branch, have the power to investigate, subpoena, and legislate. The accountability void didn't happen by accident. It was created by people in positions of power, making choices. Many of those people will be on ballots in November 2026. The record is the tool. Here's why we built this series. You're going to hear a lot of narratives over the next year. Witch hunt, political persecution, time to move on. Those narratives work when people don't know the record. But you know the record now. You know that a career prosecutor testified to proof beyond a reasonable doubt. You know that a majority of senators voted to convict. You know that Republican senators called Trump, quote, "practically and morally responsible," unquote. You know that the Supreme Court created immunity from nothing. You know that people convicted of seditious conspiracy were pardoned. You know that the corruption investigators have been purged. That's not opinion. That's the documented record. And the documented record is the most powerful tool citizens have against narratives designed to obscure it. Action items for 2026. Analysis paralysis is the enemy of democracy. Here's what you can do. 1. Know your representatives' records. Every member of Congress who was in office during the impeachment vote has a record. How did they vote? What did they say? The senators who said Trump was, quote, morally responsible, unquote, then voted to acquit? Some of them are up for re-election. Some of them want to be president. Their words are on the record. Hold them to those words. 2. Ask the question. When candidates come to your community, when they hold town halls, when they seek your vote, ask the question. Do you believe the president should be above the law? Do you support prosecuting public officials who commit crimes in office? What is your position on presidential immunity? Make them answer on the record. 3. Share the record. The master document that accompanies this series, the constitutional record, Jack Smith, the evidence, and the accountability void, is available on Substack. It's free. It has every citation. It has links to the constitutional text, the court rulings, the testimony. Share it. When somebody says witch hunt, send them to the document. When somebody says there was no evidence, send them to Jack Smith's testimony. When somebody says impeachment failed because he was innocent, send them to the 57-43 vote. The record speaks for itself when people see it. 4. Vote like accountability depends on it. Because it does. Every House seat, 1/3 of the Senate, governors, state legislators who draw district lines and run elections, the people who will be in power when the next constitutional crisis hits are on ballots in 2026. Choose accordingly. 5. Don't look away. The accountability void exists because enough people in positions of power chose not to act, chose to look away, chose party over constitution. The antidote is citizens who refuse to look away, who keep the record in front of the public, who refuse to let time to move on erase what happened. You are that antidote. We started this series on New Year's Eve. Or rather, that's when they released the testimony, hoping nobody would notice. We noticed. And now you have the record. Not my interpretation, not spin, the testimony, the votes, the ruling, the pardons, the dismantling. What you do with it is up to you. I'm Sarah. This has been the Constitutional Record. The full series and all documentation are available on Substack at Ethos. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening.